Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. Trade tensions between Canada and the United States are heating up, and this time, Alaska might end up in the crossfire. The Trump administration's aggressive tariffs on Canadian goods have provoked a sharp response from Ottawa, with British Columbia now considering tariffs on American trucks heading to Alaska. This isn't just a trade spat. It's a high-stakes political and economic standoff that could disrupt supply chains, inflate costs, and even compromise U.S. military operations in the Pacific. Could this really escalate into a full-blown economic war? Or is Canada just flexing its muscles to gain leverage? Let's dive into the key developments and what they could mean for Alaska's future. Number 5. Trump's trade tactics: how we got here. Trade tensions between Canada and the U.S. have been simmering for years. When Donald Trump took office, his America First trade policy targeted countries he believed were exploiting the U.S. market, and Canada was quickly in the crosshairs. In 2018, Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, provoking outrage from Ottawa. Fast forward to 2025, and Trump has reignited the conflict with a 25% tariff on Canadian agricultural and industrial products. Ottawa wasted no time responding, with British Columbia proposing new tariffs and transit fees on American trucks traveling through Canada to Alaska. This move strikes directly at Alaska's supply chain, which relies on Canadian routes for essential goods and military logistics. Trump remains defiant, claiming that Canada needs the U.S. more than the U.S. needs Canada, a stance not widely supported by analysts. While Canada does depend on U.S. trade, Alaska's geographic isolation makes it highly vulnerable to Canadian leverage. But Alaska's importance goes beyond trade. It's a strategic stronghold with major military and economic significance. Number 4. Why Alaska matters: economic and strategic importance. Alaska isn't just any U.S. state. It's a strategic and economic powerhouse. Its position at the northern edge of the Pacific makes it a key military outpost and a hub for oil and gas production. Alaska's economy also relies on tourism, fishing, and mining, all of which depend on reliable transportation routes through Canada. The Alcan Highway, built during World War II, is the only viable overland route connecting Alaska to the continental U.S. It serves as the primary corridor for military and commercial transport. If British Columbia imposes tariffs or blocks access, it could drive up costs for Alaskan businesses and create logistical challenges for U.S. military operations in the Pacific. British Columbia's proposed tariffs could increase the cost of goods in Alaska by as much as 20%, with seafood, oil, and tourism taking the hardest hit. For example, higher transit fees could make Alaskan seafood less competitive in U.S. markets, threatening the state's fishing industry. Military operations would also face complications. Alaska's air bases and naval ports depend on steady supply lines through Canada. If those routes are disrupted, the Pentagon might have to resort to more expensive maritime transport, a strategic headache Washington can't afford. But British Columbia isn't just targeting Alaska's economy. This is a calculated political maneuver to put pressure on Washington. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. This helps us reach more auto enthusiasts just like you. Now, let's shift gears and steer towards our next point. Number 3. British Columbia's bold move: a power play or political bluff. So, is British Columbia serious about cutting off Alaska? Or is this just a political flex to get Trump to back down? British Columbia's leadership knows exactly what they're doing. Targeting Alaska-bound traffic gives them direct leverage over Washington. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy, but the potential payoff is huge. If the United States can impose tariffs on our goods, why shouldn't we make them pay to reach Alaska? One provincial official stated. Reports suggest that British Columbia is considering a fee of up to $500 per truck crossing into Alaska. That could generate significant revenue for British Columbia while putting serious pressure on the U.S. government to rethink its trade policy. But there's a catch. Imposing tariffs on Alaska-bound trucks would also hurt Canadian businesses, especially trucking companies that rely on American contracts. The trucking industry in British Columbia depends heavily on cross-border trade. Retaliation from Washington could hit those companies hard, creating domestic backlash for Canadian leaders. Still, British Columbia's threat isn't empty. If Trump digs in and doubles down on his tariffs, British Columbia might have no choice but to follow through. And that could push this conflict into dangerous new territory. But the potential economic damage wouldn't stop there. Both countries could face serious fallout. Number 2, economic fallout. How it could impact both sides. If British Columbia imposes tariffs on Alaska-bound traffic, the economic impact could be severe for both Alaska and Canada. Alaska's economy would be hit hardest, with supply chain disruptions driving up prices on essentials like groceries and building materials. The fishing industry would face the biggest blow. Higher transport costs could make Alaskan seafood uncompetitive in U.S. markets, threatening a major source of revenue. The oil and gas sector could also suffer, as pipeline routes and shipping channels through Canada may become future tariff targets, raising costs for producers. Canada wouldn't escape the fallout. The U.S. is Canada's largest trading partner, and any disruption would hurt Canadian exporters. If American companies seek alternative shipping routes to avoid Canadian tariffs, Canadian firms could lose key contracts and revenue. Tourism could also take a hit. Higher transit fees on cruise ships and tour buses traveling through British Columbia to Alaska could deter American tourists, reducing revenue for Canadian ports and local businesses. The political backlash from Canadian businesses and American tourists could push Ottawa to negotiate a resolution. And this isn't just about economics. The political stakes are just as high. Number 1, political stakes. Could this turn into a diplomatic crisis? The political fallout from this standoff could extend far beyond trade. Alaska's Republican lawmakers have already voiced concern, urging Washington to retaliate if British Columbia follows through with the tariffs. Trump's hardline trade stance could backfire if Alaska's economy suffers. Pressure from Alaska's Republican base might force Trump to negotiate with Canada and soften his tariffs. However, Trump's reputation as a tough negotiator makes it unlikely he'll back down easily, raising the stakes for both sides. In Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faces political pressure from domestic industries hurt by Trump's tariffs. If British Columbia's strategy succeeds in forcing Trump to reconsider, it could be a political win for Trudeau. But if the conflict escalates into a trade war, Canadian exporters could face serious long-term damage. Alaska's strategic importance complicates matters further. The Pentagon depends on stable supply lines through Canada to maintain military operations in the Pacific. If those routes are disrupted, the U.S. might have to increase its military presence along the Canadian border, a scenario neither Washington nor Ottawa wants. So what's the endgame here, and who will make the next move? Verdict: will this trade war boil over? British Columbia's threat to impose tariffs on Alaska-bound traffic is a bold but risky play. On one hand, it gives Canada leverage over Trump's aggressive trade policies. On the other hand, it risks crippling Alaska's economy and driving a wedge into U.S.-Canada relations. Will Trump's administration blink first to protect Alaska's supply chain? Or will British Columbia's leaders soften their stance if Trump lifts his tariffs on Canadian goods? The outcome of this conflict could redefine North American trade policy for years to come. What's your take on this brewing trade war? Will Canada's strategy force Trump to back down, or will Alaska pay the price for political brinkmanship? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated with the latest from Piston Pundit. Thanks for watching and see you next time.